What's going on, YouTube? My name is Buckeye. Thank you for stopping by today. I appreciate it. Today we're going to be talking about the Halo TV series, the one that's been on Paramount Plus, the very polarizing show that has had a lot of people just freaking out and rolling over in their predetermined graves. I need you guys to tell me, before I get any farther, what did you think of the Halo show Season 1? Leave it down in the comments. Right now, pause it, and then go on to listen to my thoughts. The Halo Infinite TV series is not what they are telling you. Very, very important. I have been consuming the Halo TV series, and I've been consuming it a lot, and I've really enjoyed it. And I haven't seen enough people online talking about what they have appreciated from the show, even from people who cover the game a lot or are huge fans of the series. All that they seem to focus on are the negatives. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of negatives with the Halo show. But there are also a lot of really great positives that don't seem to be getting any attention, which the fact of the matter is this: the Halo series in general, I'm talking the games, the whole franchise over the last decade, has had enough failure and enough reasons to complain. When there are areas and things that we could praise, I definitely think that we should try and focus on some of those things. And especially in a brand new medium to Halo, such as a show, I think this is a good opportunity to really look at some of the positives rather than the negatives. But in this video, I will cover both, but I just want to preface that by saying that there is good and bad with the show. Now, immediately after the finale for Season 1 aired and I finished watching it, I put out my extensive thoughts on Twitter in a series of tweets, and I'll just go ahead and read that to you, and then I'll kind of break down what those thoughts actually mean. So I said, here are my extended thoughts on @Halo the series. Halsey is fantastic. The actress and the writing for her character is great. I actually like the changes for Miranda and Captain Keyes. Pablo does a great job as Chief, both in and out of the armor/helmet. Silver Team is great and has good development over the show. The art design is very Halo, and I love that. The Prophets are done well both visually and story-wise. The subplot with Chief's old buddy and the girl doesn't do anything for the story. It's completely useless. And I mainly mean that more for Quan, not as much for Soren, but he has to be there, so I'll explain that later. The subplot with Mackie, what is her name? Mackie? I think it's Mackie. McKee. I got it, McKee. The subplot with McKee is also pretty dumb. I am glad they killed her off. Essentially, the stuff in the show that is very Halo is fantastic. I appreciate the shift to a drama-focused story, and the area where that excels is with Halsey and the realization of the Spartan program. Additionally, Cortana is actually fantastic, and having Jen Taylor there brings a level of familiarity that I really connect with. If Season 2 picks up where these last 2 episodes left off, we are in for one hell of a ride. Bravo. I should also mention that I'm a huge fan of the Hunt the Truth audio drama, so I do really like them showing off the truly ugly side of the UNSC. So those are my immediate thoughts after I finished watching the finale. I put it out literally as I was sitting on my couch. I finished the episode and I tweeted that immediately as the credits started rolling. Those were my thoughts then, and they're pretty much my thoughts now, actually. But I'll go ahead and go a little bit deeper into what I mean by these thoughts. So just to start, I will go over the negatives first and explain a little bit more in detail what I feel about that. So really, the biggest issue that I have with the show is the entire Quan storyline. I understand probably why they introduced her character into the show. They're probably trying to bring people who are unfamiliar with Halo and bring them into the series from somebody that they could probably connect with a little bit more, as in, I don't know, Quan experiencing the world through her eyes. It was done so poorly, and no disrespect or anything to the actress herself. I mean, I'm sure she did a wonderful job in regards to the material that she was given. I just think the writing for her and her story was awful. I truly don't believe that it added anything to the show. The only thing that she did was initially give Chief a reason to question authority, but the only reason why he questioned authority is because he came in contact with the object. It really had nothing to do with her. She was just the path that took. I have a really big problem with her in the show. I feel like if you take her out of the show, that whole Madrigal storyline I feel like it doesn't affect anything, actually, to be completely honest with you. I really don't think it changes anything. I will say Soren was a very pleasant surprise, and I do appreciate his character quite a bit. And from what I've heard, he's actually from the books. I have not read the Halo books. I actually have a book right here. It's Halo Cryptum. I have it, and I've gotten probably half a chapter into it, and I haven't got any further. I'm not a reader. I will read this eventually. You just got to give me like 20 years and I'll finish it. But the point is, from what I've heard, he is pretty source material accurate, actually, from the books. So good on you. I thought that, I believe it's Dave Chappelle, actually, who does the character. I thought he did a fantastic job. I don't have any problem with him. I just have a problem with the story that he's involved in. It's just really unfortunate. I feel like if they just didn't have the Madrigal storyline at all, it would be great. Now, I'm not saying that I don't want anything from the Insurrectionists or the Madrigal or anything like that. By all means, have it. Honestly, I think that Quan really, really soured that whole thing for me. They just really did her character a really terrible job. It sucks. It's bad. And I hope that they never revisit that come season 2. It was pointless, especially once you got to the last 2 episodes of the show, of the season. It had nothing to do with her. Like, come on. The other thing that I really hated in this show was the McKee story with John. I understand where they were going with it, but I really don't like the fact that they went that far with Chief in the first season. They're clearly trying to make this show Game of Thrones-esque, right? Having multiple storylines, being very drama and politically focused, while also having really great action, which is something I'll get to later. The action was fantastic in the show. I understand what they were trying to do here. I just think that it falls apart horrifically. It doesn't stick the landing. It smashes on the ground. It pancakes. The parachute didn't deploy. It's a goner. You know, like the idea of having McKee and John get together is horrible. I don't know why you didn't need to do that to advance that story. I was understanding and I was on board with the idea of John and McKee connecting, but they didn't need to connect romantically. We had no reason. I mean, for crying out loud, John hasn't had emotions until he popped the thing out of his back. I find it hard to believe that he's going to immediately go that direction that quickly. I understand a lot's going on. I'm not saying that I would never want that, but golly, make that like season 4 or 5 or something like that. Give us a real reason to believe that that's going to happen. I feel like it was absolutely pointless for this show. Absolutely pointless, because immediately after that, she goes right back to where she was before, and then the next episode, or shortly after that, she's dead. So it didn't need to happen. It was pointless. Don't do it again, please. Now, those are the glaring things that I have a huge issue with in this show. There are other things that are controversial that people really hated that I actually didn't mind at all. And the biggest thing would be the helmet. People really continuously just kept holding on to this idea that they can't see Chief without the helmet. And don't get me wrong. Like I said, I've been playing Halo since I was 3 years old. I get it. We've never seen Chief without the helmet until this show. I understand. And do I think that they did it a little prematurely in the first episode? Yeah, I feel like they definitely could have had a little bit more lead up. Maybe make this like an episode 8 or episode 9 reveal. You know, you want to be like Game of Thrones, do something like that. You know what I'm saying? I didn't hate it. And when it happened, I was like, okay, I will subvert my expectations. I will see where this is going, because I do want to see how Pablo's going to do. People freaked out immediately when they realized that Steve Downes wasn't going to be the voice of Master Chief, and it was going to be Pablo. And then they quickly were like, huh, okay, Pablo actually does a pretty darn good voice. Well, he does a pretty darn good Chief and a pretty darn good John, and I really, really liked Pablo as this character. I thought he did a fantastic job showcasing the emotion that he was now displaying and now feeling for the very first time. I mean, you gotta think, this dude, not only is he experiencing feelings for him and where his mind state is at for the very first time, he's also realizing that he is a complete fake person, essentially. Everything he knows isn't real. I think Pablo did a really great job at showcasing all of that in this show. I wouldn't expect or want to see anyone else play Chief moving forward. Would I like to see a little bit more Helmet? Yes. But that goes into more other story things where I would like to see more military UNSC focused things than the Madrigal storyline, basically. But anytime that Pablo, John, or Chief was on screen, I was captivated, whether he had the helmet on or he didn't. And to be honest with you, it made the scenes where he had the helmet on more special to me. And maybe that's what they were going for. I don't know, but it worked in that regard. It worked for me. Basically, a lot of the things that I really liked about the show were the things that felt Halo. Number one, and you Halo fans, you better listen to me, okay? Because for the last decade, we've been complaining about Halo not looking like Halo. Well, this show looks like Halo, okay? So take your wins where you can get them. This show looks like Halo. The designs of the UNSC, the design of Master Chief, the design of the Spartans, the design of the Covenant, even the elites are, but they're still okay. They're not bad. The look of Reach is gorgeous. I mean, the art design, the art direction in this show is absolutely Halo, and I love that. And for me, that helps me to overlook or look past some of the things that I don't like because I am in the Halo world, if that makes sense. I'm allowing myself to be encompassed by Halo because it feels like it and it looks like it, and that's the big thing that's important. Another thing that I really liked about this show, they did the action, honestly, really well. I thought that action was good. Whenever the fights were happening, I just wanted there to be more fights because, I mean, if you really think about it, what do you do in Halo? You just constantly shoot grunts, you constantly shoot elites, you constantly shoot jackals. You know, those things were some of the best parts of the show, and I understand that it's expensive. It's very expensive, and especially for a brand new show. Even an existing IP like Halo, they obviously have some faith in that, but it's still new and it's still a video game adaptation. There's a lot of reservations. I understand that it's expensive and they probably didn't want to jump too far into throwing the budget up to the moon with that. I know that they spent $90 million on the season, but I don't know. I feel like that's actually not that much. I could be wrong with that, but if you just think about like a big blockbuster Marvel movie, right? They usually have anywhere from a $200 to $250 million budget for that 2.5 hours. Okay, 2.5 hours, $250 million. Halo's episodes were anywhere from like 40 to 50 minutes long, and there was 9 of them. If you do the math, they're actually under budget on that. So I feel like they could have spent more money. And there are some areas in the CGI, in the action, that you do notice that. And there are other times when the CGI looks incredible. It's spotty. It's a little weird. That's an area that I think could be cleaned up for season 2. But the action was great, and I can picture in my mind right now a scene where a grunt took over a Warthog and was driving the Warthog, and then Chief jumps on the Warthog, kicks him out of it, and takes over the Warthog. That's such a Halo thing, right? That's such a Halo thing. I love that. I think they really handled those like Easter eggs and fan service things really well, actually, because they weren't like, you know, handed to you on a silver platter with a flashing neon sign. No, they put them in the show in scenes that made sense, and you were like, I understood that reference. You know what I'm saying? There are some smaller things and characters that they change around a little bit, like Keyes and Miranda. Honestly, it was fine to me. I've never been that connected to those characters in the first place from the games, so for me, it was fine. It was okay. I thought the actor and the actress did a wonderful job as those characters. And I also thought that Jen Taylor as Cortana did a wonderful job. It was such a pleasure hearing her voice when she was in the various scenes that she was in. I mean, that felt right. And especially at the end of the last episode, where she was really interacting with John, I liked it a lot. The last fighting sequence where Chief was fighting and he was like, listen, Cortana, I need you. And they were working together. I was like, damn. Man, I have played this before. This is fantastic. That is something that they really did right. And I'm really glad that they got Jen Taylor to come back for that and actually do the character. And you could see over the course of the show, as it got closer to the end, more of that character developed in a way that we understood from the games, if that makes sense. So basically, I'll leave it with this because I've been talking for forever. There's a lot of negatives with the show, but I think that there are enough positives to look more at the positives and be excited or at least interested in where they're going to go with season 2. Here's the bottom line, okay? If you just hate the show to hate the show, you're going to send Halo back where it's been for the last 10 years. In the gutter, where no one cared. Okay, we actually have something that the broader audience of entertainment can consume, which can then help the games. I mean, we've had enough negativity. Why can't we look to some positives? I mean, we already have a season 2 greenlit. Let's give some constructive feedback and say, all right, guys, now go out there and knock it out of the park in season 2. I mean, Game of Thrones, I keep mentioning it, but it's a show that was a icon of TV for years. You think every episode of that show was fantastic or every season was as good as the next one? No. I mean, just ask people about the last season, which I also didn't hate, but it wasn't that good. But the point is this. It's not going to be perfect, and it's certainly not going to be perfect if you only hate on it. Give some constructive feedback, and definitely take note of the positives. That's how I see it, and that's why I'm saying that the Halo TV series is not what they're telling you. They're just saying a bunch of stuff, and they're valid, and they can have those opinions, but I just think that we're overlooking some areas that should get more attention. That's all. But anyways, thank you for sticking around to the end of this video. If you're still listening, props to you, because we've been talking for too long, and I appreciate you being here. If you enjoyed what I said, if you enjoyed the idea, give this video a like. If you have your own thoughts, please, I want to hear them. Leave them down in the comments. Let's have a discussion. I want to see what you guys actually thought of the Halo show. I mean, I want to know, honestly. It was a very polarizing first season. I want to see what you guys think. But if you want to see more stuff like this, definitely consider subscribing, turning on that bell for post notifications, and check out all my links in the description, my social media, my website, all that good stuff. I'd really appreciate it. But anyways, guys, that'll do it for me. I will see you in the next one.